Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this video, we're doing our monthly top 10, which will be my top 10 customs that I've done. I know that sounds like a weird thing, but a lot of people, like a lot, probably more than any other top 10 we've done, have requested this. They want to know, I guess, what I think my best works were. I'm not sure, but I'm not going to go by best works. I'm just going to go by the ones that I enjoyed the most and maybe look back on the fondest. I don't know, just something like that. And these are in no particular order, so I'm not going by quality. So if one of these is yours or one of these isn't yours, if you've commissioned me, don't feel bad. These are strictly personal favorites. They have nothing to do with what I think is good or bad or anything like that. So just before we get into it, I do want to make sure you guys are aware that I will, if you have good ideas, listen to your requests for top 10 videos for each month. Now, next month is already set, but you can go ahead and put some options down below if you have any good ideas, and maybe we'll see that in July or going forward. Alright, so let's go ahead and get into this. We're going to start with an honorable mention, and the only reason this is an honorable mention, it's not the most articulated thing I've ever made. Yes, it still counts as an action figure, and I'm so very happy with how it turned out, but it's very only moderately articulated. The arms still are articulated, and the neck, and the waist. That's it. I did have to do a lot of sculpting. All of the armor is sculpted either by hand, traditionally with clay, or digitally. So I had to sculpt all of that, and then I also had to connect the wings to the body, obviously. And then I resculpted the legs because they needed armor and more muscles. And I resculpted everything except for the biceps on this guy. So it just took so much to do that, and we wanted it to look good. The customer was more interested in it looking good than having articulation, so we sacrificed articulation for it. So while I am very proud of how this turned out and I really enjoyed making it, it's less articulated, so I had to leave it up here in the honorable mention section. Coming in at number 10, we have the Samurai Deadpool, which was kind of an interesting project. The customer contacted me and said, I want a Samurai Deadpool. Make it however you want. So I said, all right, this sounds like fun. So I just went nuts. I used a Spider-Man figure, actually, and because he was kind of small and had more flexibility and that kind of thing. It was the black and red one. What was that? Ultimate? I don't remember what they're called. Anyway, and so I just sculpted everything. This was all made traditionally. No digital sculpting. This was before I had that capability. So I sculpted all of the armor by hand, and then I used ropes and cloth and things to connect all of the armor to the body and to itself. And he ended up being highly posable and highly detailed, at least as much as was within reason. Obviously, everything's built on a budget here, so you have to take those kind of things in mind. But I just kind of went nuts with how I wanted it to look, and I was very, very pleased with how it turned out, and the customer had a lot of fun, and it's definitely one of my most unique pieces, so that's why it makes the list. Now this next one is Killer Frost, and the reason this one's on the list is because I made this a while ago, and I don't think even today I could do any better. I think this one turned out exactly as I wanted it. I don't remember really having any challenges other than making it look good. That's always somewhat of a challenge. But I wish I owned this figure. I wish I owned all of them. It's kind of like my children, picking between them. So that's why I said, none of these are actually better than the others as far as I'm concerned. They just have different things that I like about them. But this one is like, if I was making a custom for myself of this character, this is exactly how it would be. So I'm just very pleased with how it turned out. The hair was sculpted traditionally. Everything was sculpted traditionally. All the seam work and everything, that was all done by hand and then just painted up. So yeah, it's a fairly basic custom, but I really like the way it turned out. So I was pleased with that. And speaking of people who have the power to make things cold, we have Iceman. And the reason I have this Iceman, and actually this is the second version, I have the first version on here too, all in the same listing, but the reason I have this on here is I absolutely love the AOA Iceman character design. It's just so cool, no pun intended. And this is my take on it. The first version, which you'll see in just a second, is basically the same as the second one, just with some slight alterations. So there's the first one there. And it's basically my customer said, hey, I want an AOA Iceman, go nuts. So I just resculpted the entire body and made it look like cracked ice. And, that's about as good as you can do for that. You can't use clear plastic, obviously, not if you're going to sculpt it anyway. So I just had to do this kind of effect, and I really love how it turned out, and I kind of wish I had one for myself, but I don't. All right, next up for number 7, we have the Udon Taskmaster. And I think I've made 5 of these now, 5 different versions of him. And they're all very, very similar. So I've got just a few photos from different releases here. I call them releases. They're not releases. Different commissions. And it's a relatively basic custom again, but I kind of just, I don't know, I made it the way I would want it to be if someone else made it, like from the factory, from a manufacturer. So it has a removable head, interchangeable hoods, interchangeable eyepieces, and then just as much articulation as I could salvage out of the base body, which was the shield agent. So, it retained basically everything, but I was able to pack in a lot of detail, and it's just one of the more dynamic looking characters, and it was a lot of fun to make them because I didn't really have to sacrifice anything. Luckily, because of the character design, I could kind of just go nuts with it, and I really like that character design, so it was fun to make those. Coming in at number 6 is something nobody's ever done before because this is an original design. One of my customers contacted me and said, that's how all these stories start. I should probably just stop saying that. But they said, hey, I want an anime-inspired armored Batman. Do whatever you want. And I think you might be noticing a trend. Those are my favorite commissions. I think probably for every artist, that's probably the favorite thing they can do is whatever they want. But not because you get paid to do whatever you want, but because you get to just do stuff creatively without having to do what somebody else tells you to do. But anyway, obviously you guys know Batman's my favorite, and armored stuff is fun, and anime stuff is fun. So I just kind of went nuts with it. I keep saying that because these are all things I like, and I like to go nuts. Wait, take that back. Anyway, point is, this one turned out to be highly articulated and highly unique, and obviously it's Batman, so it was a lot of fun, and I just really enjoyed just kind of coming up with an armor design. And as you can see, I used a lot of Halo parts to pay homage to Halo, and because I had lots of parts that looked good. So it was just kind of like one of those projects where everything came together, and it was just tons of fun. And then I finished it, and I set it up on top of my tall computer table at the time, and it fell down the back, bounced off the wall, hit the table, did all kinds of fun stuff. And nothing broke or scratched on it. It was absolutely amazing. So it was a fun project, and I was incredibly lucky to not have to rebuild half of it right after finishing it. Coming in at number 5, we have another one of my projects which is particularly unique, and that is this concept version of Mr. Freeze. Guy said, I want this particular Mr. Freeze, and there's nothing like that out there. And I was like, you're right, there's not. So let's use Colossus. We took a little bit of liberty with that. Maybe it was even his idea, I'm not sure. But we used Colossus to use kind of like that corrugated, like spacesuit type look, even though obviously for Colossus that's not the case. I think the original design had baggy clothes, but we couldn't, obviously, like I said, there's a budget, so we had to, make some sacrifices to use base parts, and that's just the nature of making customs, but we used that to give him kind of like a high-tech suit, and then I just freaking sculpted everything. I just went through and I was like, all right, there's nothing I can use to make this. So the armor was completely sculpted. I did it in multiple parts and then connected it and resculpted and added the rivets and all that kind of stuff. I scoured the internet looking for the right kind of capsule to make the helmet out of. It's not just a gumball thing. That was a pain in the butt, but boy did it pay off. I loved that. That's actually Colossus's head. I re-sculpted completely. I think everything but the ears. Everything but the nose. Something like that. I don't remember. It's been a while. And then I had to make the tank on his back, which was made out of an insulin vial with... Here's my secret to make it look like it's a bubbling tank. I put a stainless steel tube in there, which is obviously in the middle, and then I put some colored hand sanitizer in there because alcohol won't break down in a sealed container like that. And so because it's in alcohol, I figured food coloring would probably be stable, so I did that. And it turned out great. It looked awesome. So he's got a glass tank on his back, and that was just a lot of fun. It's a very creative endeavor, and I really, really enjoyed that. On for number 4, we have Strider, which is one of my favorite character designs, even though I've never played any of the games he's in, other than Marvel vs. Capcom. But it took some Storm Collectibles parts, and I did a lot of resculpting and kit bashing and creative stuff to get things to work. And the reason this one's on here is it's a fairly unique build. I mean, I don't use a lot of those parts on a regular basis, but I was able to mix in some mixed media, and I made a lot of accessories from scratch, whether it was his sword or his grippy thing or his belt, which is connected by magnets to keep it floating in place where it goes. And it was just a really fun project, and it kind of all came together exactly how I wanted, which, it doesn't always happen that way. So I really enjoyed this, and my customer liked it, and it turned out to be a pretty fun project. And coming in at number 3, we have 2 different Deathstrokes, and this is just kind of by coincidence, but I had somebody who liked my Batman a whole lot, Maybe it was the other way around, I don't remember. But they said I wanted Deathstroke, or they said Batman, I don't remember. Again, it could be either way. But they said they wanted one based on the other. This was either first or second, I don't know. But we have this Deathstroke, which is built on maybe the same body as Batman. I can't quite remember for sure, but I think it was. And I actually built it in a lot the same way, using Halo armor and a lot of sculpting and just some ingenuity. The head was completely sculpted from scratch, so that was a ton of fun. Not completely, I guess. There's a little bit on the back of the head that is retained, but either way, I got to kind of just go nuts with my design again. Whatever I wanted to do, I could do, and I really, really enjoyed that, because Deathstroke's kind of a fun character to work on anyway, so I kind of had free reign, and so I did that. And then the other Deathstroke is this armored one, which is same story. Make whatever you want, make it Deathstroke. So this one is completely sculpted 100% by hand from scratch, except for the black parts underneath. This was built on a Figma Cobra, so it was just a blank body, and I put all kinds of armor on it, and made the head from scratch. He has posable eye on this head and on his unmasked head, which you can't see here, but it was just a lot of fun again. You know, I get to do whatever I want, and those are the best. And sometimes I like how they turn out. I mean, most of the time I do. And I especially like how they turn out when I get to come up with the design. If somebody else comes up with the design and then they tell me to make it, that's fine. I'm happy to do it. But, you know, I don't have any personal feelings toward that, so I don't really care. You know, it looks like what they wanted it to look like, and that's awesome. That's it. I'm done. Sometimes I get to have a little bit of ownership of that, and it makes it a little bit more fun. Coming down to number 2, we have a 2-pack of Bebop and Rocksteady. These were made simultaneously, and they were both made with different Hulk bodies, and I just kind of, again, went nuts. He said, make Bebop and Rocksteady and hulked out like Marvel Legends style figure. So I said, can do, let's do that. So I did a lot of sculpting. I used real chains and found some turtle shells I could use and connected those with chains so the shoulders and hips are still fully posable, and found them some nice big accessories. I changed their skin textures, changed their original heads, and gave them shoes and did a camo paint job. You know, I just kind of added as much detail and that was based on the cartoon, and then kind of brought that to life, and they were a lot of fun. I made those really early in my career, and I would like to remake them using the same recipe and the same plans, and just, you know, with my refined skill set. I think that'd be a lot of fun, but I wouldn't change much. I mean, other than, you know, my ability, I wouldn't change anything. I really like the way those turned out, so very pleased with those guys. And then coming in at number 1, again, this is in no particular order, but just because it's on here in number 1, we have my Earthworm Jim figures. Now, this first one had a removable head that had 2 different snake worm Jim. Earthworm snake Jim. That's snake Steve, I don't know. So the head could come out, and then you could go on the different bodies, and otherwise it was a fairly straightforward custom with some sanding and some straps and some painting, and that was it. I did sculpt it, obviously, from scratch traditionally. And then my second version had the backpack, but was essentially the same thing without the interchangeable head. I'm very pleased with how these turned out, but I made them very early in my career, and I would be very happy to redo them. I was very pleased, I still am, with the head sculpts, but I'd like to redo them digitally, because I have no limitations when it's digital, obviously. I don't have to worry about things being fragile, really, or breaking or anything like that, which is really the same thing, being fragile and breaking. But yeah, I still really, really like these, and they were such fun to make. But I'd really like to make them again. So if anybody out there is thinking about commissioning me, this was basically a top 10 list of things I'd like to do again. No, not really. I have a really long wait list, but if you want to get on it, that'd be cool. Okay, so that's it, guys. You know, it was kind of a weird top 10 list, but I know a lot of people wanted to see it. It was fun for me to stroll down memory lane. So whoever recommended it, all of you guys out there, I do appreciate it. I like this kind of thing. I haven't thought about my customs in a long time, these old ones anyway. I mean, I think about the ones I'm working on and then move along. Unfortunately, when you're doing art for a living, you don't necessarily always get to appreciate what you're doing. So this was a lot of fun for me. Hopefully for any of you who have been around for a while, you remember these. They are all on my internet channel. Wow. On my YouTube channel. So if you want to check out those videos, I can't like put iCards up there for every one of them. It doesn't work that way, but you can just search my customs playlist and take a look at them. But anyways, guys, that'll do it. So thanks again for watching. Thanks again for suggesting. And if you do have new suggestions, please put those in the comment section below. And in the meantime, keep collecting.